Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm Butch Theory, and as usual, I'm joined by my trusty co-host, Captain Joseph Baya. What you say, Joe?
Captain, I'm back, man. I am back. I'm telling you, I
didn't know you were gone.
Well, I'm back. I'm taking it old school this week. I'm going.
You're throwing it back, or you are back?
I'm back because I'm going to be deckhanding for your brother this weekend.
Coming out of retirement is what you're saying.
They better watch out, man. I've been getting my body prepared all week long. I'm working on about 4 hours of sleep.
Not sure what that means, but it frightens me a little bit.
Well, I've been working on about 4 hours of sleep in the last 6 days. Every morning I've been getting up and drinking about 9 cups of coffee, which, you got to get the nerves leveled out and kind of prepare yourself for what you're going to face on an overnight blue water fishing trip.
Trial by fire. That's
right. Every time Stephanie walks by me in the house, I got a little cane. You know, it's kind of, I've been pretending it's my gaff. Whenever she walks by me, I just
giving her a good hook.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
that's been good. And
good, man. That'll be fun.
Yeah,
I'm just in the saddle.
I'll tell you another thing I'm really excited about is that guy is going to be on this trip.
Who's that? What guy?
You know who he is.
Do
and
I?
Some of the folks listening right now, they're that guy. Because inevitably, 6 months ago, whenever that guy booked this trip, he was sitting on his couch and he was kind of getting excited for this. And he was thinking, I got a really good joke I'm going to tell whenever I go on this trip. And so it's going to happen. I already know it's going to happen. I'm going to be at the dock or on the boat cutting some bait, and a guy's going to walk up to me and he's just going to have the biggest grin on his face, and he's going to say,
you already know what's coming. But you already know what's coming.
Are you going to be my masturbator this weekend?
Yes, sir. I sure am.
Yeah. And I'm just going to look at him like it's the first time I've ever heard that joke.
Just like we do every day. Or did every day. If I had $1 for every time I heard that joke, I wouldn't need any more dollars.
Right. We'd have plenty.
Well, good, man. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'll tell you what, though. Blue water fishing's heating up, and that's what I'm excited about. We've been calling it, and I was really hoping that we weren't going to be wrong. It's getting right out there, man. We talked to Devin last week, had a great marlin trip. As far as I know, the Gulf record yellowfin was caught this week.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking to Van Yath a little bit later in the show, getting the story behind a 258-pound yellowfin tuna.
I can't wait to hear this story because you know it's awesome.
I personally have not physically witnessed a tuna over we caught one in the 180s one time.
Skipper and I, whenever we were deckhands on the Lady Ann back in the day, I can remember boating. I think it was a 192 and a 198 or a 196, like within 30 minutes of each other.
There are different species when they get above about 150 pounds. They look different coloration. I just can't wait 100%. To hear the story. It's so weird. I mean, they crushed the record. Didn't just break it, like they crushed it.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't it like 209 or something?
I think it was. No, I think there was a Gulf fish in the 230s. Maybe that's still a huge. I mean,
I can't imagine that thing rolling up on the wire.
That's 10% bigger than the biggest fish anybody's ever caught in the Gulf. That's really cool. I can't wait to hear how that went down.
Me too.
So we got that coming. Got a good offshore report, a little update on the cobia tagging project.
Yep.
I'm excited to hear about that. Sounds like everything's getting right. Who's bringing us a show this week?
Yeah, man. This week's show is brought to us by our local Geico Insurance Office. Everybody knows that Geico has great auto rates, but they also have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft. Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Not only will Ron work hard to get you the lowest premium possible, but you'll have the service you expect and can count on if you ever need to make a claim. Geico does even more than insure your valuable items. They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your insurance. If you're an Alabama saltwater fisherman, support the local insurance agent who helps bring you this show each week. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online on the interweb at geico.com/mobile-al. Good people right there. Good people.
If you've got on the water service and you've got insurance, you owe it to yourself to give them a call and at least see, because most of the time you can save money on one or the other by bundling them up. That's what a lot of people don't realize. They've got their Boat US or their Sea Tow deal on one end and they got the insurance on the other side, why not figure out if you can combine them? Just makes sense to me.
Agreed. Yeah, that policy that I just had Ron write for me, it came with Towboat US.
There you go.
That's pretty cool.
Win, win, win. Let's
Agreed.
see who's winning on the onshore side of things. Who we got giving us the
Let's get it going,
report?
man.
What we got? Surf or Pier, or who we talking to?
Let's go down to get the Pier report. Let's see what old Pier Pounder's been doing. Mr. David Thornton. Say, Mr. David.
Hey, Butch. How's it going?
Oh, man, we are all right, buddy. You been fishing any? What's going on?
Yeah, finally cooling off a little bit. So, it's really kind of getting that feel that everybody's been hearing about, and it's finally coming to fruition here. And we're going to, start doing more and more of the fall type fishing. And actually, even though the weather had been hot, we'd kind of been slipping into the fall kind of fishing from the pier, just because I guess the days are getting shorter. The water wasn't abnormally warm. It was slightly above average for early October, but it's about on key right now. It's right about where it should be. And these cooler nights are going to help drop it a little bit more. There's still a ton of these jack pelagic fish around to catch because the water is still above 80 degrees. And it just gives a great opportunity for just lots and lots of different options. When people are pier fishing, you can almost always find something that's biting. It may only be ladyfish and blue runners, but it could be 3-pound bluefish or 2 or 3 pounds Spanish mackerel, or even redfish, pompano are coming back. So it's just, a lot of options, both the local fish and the pelagic fish as they're trying to kind of fatten up before their migration to the east and south for the winter.
David, you mentioned Spanish mackerel, and I've seen a number of different reports from our area, but also over in Florida with some really nice quality Spanish mackerel being caught right now. For somebody who's new to pier fishing, new to surf fishing, and maybe just new to the coast, explain what you look for, especially from the pier, when you're identifying Spanish. Kind of trying to see this through the eyes of somebody who's walking out on the pier for the first time. If they get out there and they see some activity, what's going to tell them that it's Spanish mackerel and that they need to gear up appropriately?
Quite often, if Spanish mackerel are feeding on the surface, you will see them. They will jump out of the water. They'll sky on these baits, and you'll see them kind of come up just like miniature king mackerel. They'll kind of sky up out of the water and then go back in head first. If you only catch a flash on the surface, and that's all you're seeing, you're not seeing any fish jump out of the water, odds are it's ladyfish or possibly bonita, the little toonie. If it's just smacks on the surface and you don't see a lot of just swirls, then that's probably either, if it's small, it's probably blue runners, hardtails. So that's how I tell the difference, and it can be even some smaller jacks than that, like the Atlantic bumper, just sort of feed on the surface, and it kind of sounds like rain on the surface when they're smacking on the surface.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about when you say that. That's a really good description of what that kind of looks like, that feeding looks like. Speaking of the Spanish mackerel, are you seeing those quality fish at the pier?
Some, yeah. The bad side is with the mackerel showing up and getting bigger in the fall, the sharks are back too, and they can be kind of mess with you sometimes. It'll be a race. I'll get into some more of that later, how to avoid that. But typically, there's been some good fish caught, even like up to 5 pounds occasionally. They're not all like that, of course. But I have noted in this past week and a half or so that the average size of the fish has increased. It's not, a lot of those 12-inch micro mackerel like we've been getting. They're like 15, 16 inches and up to 20 inches, and then a few of these larger fish that are 3 to 5 pounds occasionally. And just so folks know, a 12-inch Spanish mackerel, and I'm talking fork length, is probably about a half a pound. And once they get to about 14 inches, they're about a pound. And at 16, they're a pound and a half. So you would get like 3 times as much meat off of a 16-inch mackerel as you would a 12-inch.
That's good stuff. You mentioned redfish, Mr. David. What do you got? You guys seeing any size on those?
They've mostly been slots, like 22 up to 26. The average is probably about 24, 25. And they're, really a lot of fun. You got to, sometimes they're under the pier, so you got to tackle up pretty heavy, which is like to catch a 4 or 5 pound fish, you got to muscle him out from under the pier, because a lot of times they'll use the shadow of the pier as a feeding station. And that way the glare is not in their eyes, and they can pick out individual bait fish. And all you have to do is just hook a bait fish so that it flutters and looks wounded, and drop it down about 10 feet, and they can see that and pick it out of the school of bait fish. They just kind of, the school of reds just kind of hangs back in the shadow underneath the bait fish, looking for a wounded one occasionally, and they'll just rush up and pick them off like that. People getting limits, like in 20 minutes. It's like bang, bang, bang. Yeah, there was one guy that dropped down 5 times and caught 4 fish.
That's a pretty good average there, Cotton. I really like that. I don't know if it was a tip or you just talking, but on the that pier with the shadow thing. Remember that, Joe? You and I are both like,
yeah.
Just not being a pier fisherman, following that shadow. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, those fish love those shadows.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much longer we're going to have that. They're talking about, or to what extent the new deck that they're talking about putting on the pier next year is that composite plastic material that the sunlight does pass through. It's kind of a graded material, and so it won't be total shadow. It'll be diffused light that goes through, and I think it'll still pretty much be about the same, but it won't be quite as strong of a shadow. The abrupt contrast from just total darkness and then into the light in that blazing summer sun is a huge contrast mark. And the fish and bait fish too use it as a refuse, to get away from the predators, but it can also kind of set them up for getting ambushed also.
David, you mentioned redfish in the shadows, and you were talking about using different bait fish. How do you tackle that up, though? Is that just a free line kind of deal, or do you have different rigs to approach that with?
Yeah, because I was using like 20-pound braid. I didn't want to straighten the hook out, so I was using some number 6 4X strong treble hooks, where it's still small enough for that 3-inch bait to where it doesn't overpower the bait, and make it look unnatural or weight it down. It still allows the bait to swim, but it's really plenty strong, so I can really muscle that fish and try and get him out from between the pilings. Even if the fish is only about 3 pounds or so, you could even flip it, pull it up out of the water and flip it over the rail.
When you're using the small baits, those 3-inch baits, are you trying to get that fish to swim, or are you just kind of pitching that bait under there and is it small enough that the weight of the line and the hook is sinking that bait down, or is that fish actually kind of just free swimming around in there?
Yeah, he'll struggle against the hook. And there's several different ways of hooking those bait fish. And years ago, I saw a program by Mark Sosin about different ways of hooking bait fish. And he would hook them in the tail so they'd swim away from him, and he'd hook them in the nose so he could cast them. And there was one place he'd hook them up underneath the belly, under the front pectoral fins. And there's a hard place where they have the belly is kind of real, strong
rigid
V shape. Yes, and that is the most rigid part without going through bone. That's the most rigid part of the fish. And I just stick that hook in one fin and through it and out the other. And every time he struggles against that, he flips over. So he's flashing silver and kind of quivering against it. It makes him really stand out in the crowd. All the rest of the bait fish are swimming, belly side down and the green side up. And then all of a sudden there's this one.
He looks super injured.
Yeah. It looks like he's, and it mimics the pattern that when they start dying, we call it the dance of death. When the LY die-off comes sometimes in the summer, and they'll get up on the surface and they'll do these little whirly birds through the water, and you'll see them go round and around and around, and then they'll get up to the surface and they'll flip over on the surface. And it's like whirling disease or something that fish get in fresh water. And the fish can key off on that. They see all that flashing and fluttering going on, and it just triggers that instinct to grab the bait and to let them know that that's a wounded bait that they can get without having to chase it down like one that hasn't been injured yet.
Survival of the fittest, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Keying them into when they picking off the weaker ones, and kind of cashing in on that natural instinct that the fish have, and bait up accordingly so that the bait imitates that pretty well, and that's the thing, especially when there's lots of bait around in the water. You don't want to sometimes throwing something that's different will get them kind of a reaction strike. But if you're, just sitting there soaking bait, then you probably want to match the hatch.
That's why the same way as like frat guys, that's why they wear like those neon shirts and stuff.
Stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
Stand out a little bit, trying to get the reaction strike at the bar.
All right, Mr. David, we'd like to get that onshore tip from you as always. And this week's onshore tip is brought to us by Fishbites. Are you tired of scrambling for bait whenever you decide to go fishing? Have an artificial bait that's better than live bait ready to go at the moment's notice with Fishbites. It's easy to pack and travel with and shelf stable. And not to mention tough. With Fishbites, the bait stays on the hook and the fish stay on the bait. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits as well as terminal tackle at fishbites.com. Those guys sent us some nice little care package for the Hey Cap questions.
We got a cool one.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know you like Fishbites, David, but what you got for an onshore tip?
Well, I would go back to that I mentioned about matching the hatch with so much natural bait in the water right now. We're in that summer to fall transition time, so we really want to use what's available. Around the pier, there's just a huge crop of these 3-inch LYs that are, newly hatched out, and all the game fish are coming around the pier, feeding on them. And that's, everything I mentioned, from all the jacks, bluefish, the redfish, Spanish mackerel, they even the pompano get in there occasionally. You don't think about pompano eating minnows, but they do occasionally. So, there's just a lot of different options. So guys will use spoons to imitate them, or small plugs. I like a little small rattle trap is a fun bait to throw first thing in the morning, catch some of the larger Spanish that are available. And also the herring, imitating the herring that are around the pier as well. So throwing the little X-wraps like a number 8 or number 10 can be pretty deadly too. But, sometimes it's just hard to beat Mother Nature, and especially when there's so much available. And I'll catch, take 15 minutes and catch me a dozen or dozen and a half bait fish and keep them alive. And I can fish for an hour and a half with that without stopping. And that way, when you get on a bite, it's like you just go to your bucket and get another bait. You don't have to go hunt up another bait and then come back, and the bite may be over by then. So that way you can kind of stay tuned into it by having your bait supply right there ready. And I'll even put 2 of the bubblers on my 5-gallon bucket so that I can put a few more bait fish in the bucket without stressing them. Now that the water's cooling off, you can put even more in there.
David, I'm going to cheat a little bit and steal a question we got from our Hey Cap on the Facebook page this week. And Butch, we need to send that lady something anyway, even though this is not the official Hey Cap question.
Right, we will. It's a good conversation spurter.
She was curious if you use a different type of fish bites when you're fishing from the pier.
Or if you do anything different with your fish bites.
Or if you do anything different with your fish bites. I had a couple questions, about how they cut the strips up. And there's a really cool diagram I shared on that post over on the Fishbites website of different ways to cut your strips. But I want to ask you specifically, do you do anything different with the different scents or the different colors when you're fishing from the pier?
As far as different colors, about the only thing I can think of that I really single out is that when we're targeting spadefish that will usually use pink, they seem to respond to that better than even the orange, but the pink and the fluorescent green seem to work best for the spadefish.
Well, that's easy.
Now,
all spadefish are females. You know that, right? They change their sex in adulthood. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
Because I completely made it up. Totally made that up.
All right.
Anyway, sorry.
I didn't know if it was one of those fish.
Got him.
Yeah, man. I'm like, really?
Sounded really scientific. I saw it National Geographic. No,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
All I could think about was Caitlyn Jenner the whole time you were saying.
Please proceed, David. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just.
Yeah, back on track. As far as using Fishbites from the shallow end, especially if you're targeting the fish like whiting, pompano, drum, those are usually the easy flea works pretty good, but I like just the fluorescent orange, and I'll vary it up sometimes in the flavors too. The crab flavor is good. Everybody uses shrimp, and that seems to work pretty good. It's one of those things, just like sometimes color matters, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes flavor matters, sometimes it, usually it doesn't make that big of a deal. But you have to experiment a little bit with it, and I like to do that when I'm on a good bite. I may change it up just a little bit to see, they're hitting this orange flavor, the shrimp flavor. Will they hit the crab flavor just as well? And another thing too is the way that you mentioned about the way that I prepare it, cut it, and stuff like that. If I'm throwing like a goofy jig or something like that, and I've got it tipped, I'll cut about 1.5 or 2 inch strip off, and then I'll take my scissors and split it right down the middle and use that to tip my jig with. And when I drag it along the bottom, because it'll stay on the hook much better than a piece of shrimp would, and that way I've got a little flavor on there, a little scent trail as I'm dragging that jig along the bottom and kind of twitching it along the bottom, looking for pompano or reds or whatever. And another way we do it too is sometimes at this time of year the pinfish are so bad from the pier up on the beach that you have to just use Fishbites. You can't even get away with using shrimp because they'll strip it off the hook. Baby pompano and pinfish are terrible about doing that.
Well, David,
great report.
Sounds like things are going in the right direction for the fall. If folks want to get up with you and do a pier trip, I'll tell you what, that'd be some money well spent. If you're new to the area, go with Captain David. Let him show you around the pier, show you around the surf. If folks want to do that with you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Probably to just go through pierpounder.com, and that'll set them up on my Facebook page, my Pier Pounder Facebook page, and it's got the pricing information, my contact information, and all is on that page.
That sounds awesome. Great, Captain David. Well, thanks for the report, man. As always, we sure do love getting the info from you, and enjoy having you share a little bit of that knowledge you got up there in that noggin. We sure appreciate it. Hope you can get out there and keep fishing. Don't work so much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's true for all of us, isn't it?
That's
Amen,
right,
brother. We'll talk to you soon, Mr. David. Thank you again.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Good luck.
Butch, I've always been fond of those shrimp fish bites more than the crab. They just leave a bad taste in my mouth. That was the only thing I don't like about
We're not supposed to eat them, clown.
Knew I was doing something wrong.
Man, I am excited about this next interview, Joe.
Me too.
Let's
get right to it. So last week, as far as we know, the Gulf record yellowfin was caught. How much did it weigh, Butch?
I think it was 258.
258 pounds. I mean, that's just wild.
It's gigantic.
Let's get the story.
Let's talk to Van Yath and his son Nick Yath caught the big tuna, right? Right, Van?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you guys were out of Venice?
Yes, we left out of Venice.
Voodoo Fishing Charters hooked you guys up, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, they were fantastic. It was our first time out Venice and also out tuna fishing. And we kind of hit the lottery with them.
So your first tuna fishing trip, and you're pretty much retired. I mean, how can you beat that? Your son especially.
Yeah.
That's correct. Well, he said, well, next time we'll go for the Wahoo record.
I like that.
So your son actually caught the fish, and how old is he?
He's 14.
Whew, man.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. So, I mean, he basically won the Super Bowl.
Pretty much.
His first time
at
out.
14 years old.
Let's hear about how you guys caught this fish. So you leave out of Venice. What type of boat is Voodoo Fishing Charters? What type of boat was he running?
Oh, we were on a nice boat. It was a 42-foot yellowfin with quads on the back. That thing we were wide open all day, and just in 5 to 6 foot seas, we were still pushing 50. It was no problem. It was awesome.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's amazing where boats have gotten to and what you're able to do. So you guys go out, and was this like the first fish of the day? Was it right off the bat? Y'all been fishing for a long time?
No. So, the first thing we did was we went and got some bait, a couple of shrimp boats. The third one we went to, they had bait. So, our first mate actually jumped off our boat onto their boat, got the bait, threw it back on our boat, and went to a buoy and got some live bait just to have. So really, the first hour we're getting bait. One of the first shrimp boats we went to, actually the first shrimp boat we went to that had any bait, we saw that he had a nice school of whatever underneath his boat. So as soon as we got bait, we went after that first shrimp boat we went to, and we just started chumming behind him. And we were actually able to hook one probably similar to the size that we caught. And I know it was almost a 200-pounder that just blew the reel up, just destroyed it. Got off within 10 minutes after that. We caught a nice sized one. It's probably 150-pound yellowfin, which actually was the second biggest fish of the week down there. When we got to the marina, everybody was ooh and eyeing over the first fish until they saw the second fish.
I'm sure.
150-pound yellowfin's nothing to sneeze at.
It's a big yellowfin. Yeah.
So you catch this 150, and you guys are high-fiving thinking, great day already, right?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. When we caught it, I mean, that was the biggest fish any of us have seen in person. And, some of my clients, they were like, hey, this is a contender for the biggest fish you guys have caught for the year. And the captain said, nah, the biggest one I've seen was 216. So, well, okay, we got some work to do. But regardless, we had fish on the boat, so we were good, man. We were on the board. So
what next?
Went looking for a couple other shrimp boats. I think we were probably about an hour or two just chasing different boats. Just all we could get was sharks, bonita, caught a nice black fin. And then the captain remembered, the first fish, we were in blue water, so we went back further out. We saw a shrimp boat, ways out. Kind of blue water. We were chumming again, and we didn't really see any sharks. Saw one or two, like small bonita, but we were marking something on the fish finder, and the rest of us, we were kind of just talking and relaxing. And my son was watching. He's with the captain, and he was watching the captain. He threw out a live bait on a flat line. He saw something taking it, and to be honest, they both thought it was something small because the way the fish acted. But I think as soon as the captain pushed the drag lever up and the fish realized it was hooked, it was game on.
Yeah,
that's
this
awesome.
thing took off. Yeah, this thing took off just like something you see in Wicked Tuna, right? I mean,
it was Wicked Tuna.
Nuts. Yeah, it was nuts. Then everybody got up. By the time the captain handed the rod to my son, I mean the fish had almost spooled him, so we had to chase it with the boat. I mean, Captain Matt was awesome. I mean, he was just if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have got this fish. I mean, he got that boat turned and chasing this fish, and we were probably, if one of the videos that I sent, I mean, we were probably going 25, 30 miles an hour chasing this fish. Wow. Luckily my son knows what to do, keep tension on the fish. And, he was able to get half the spool back on. And, man, he fought that thing for a good 20 minutes, got 90% of the spool back on the reel. And then when he got to the lead, that's when it got challenging. So the fish pretty much stayed at 150 feet. It would not come past the thermocline. You know, my son would get it up to like 140 feet and it would go down to 160. He did that for a while. He got tired, so then he handed me the rod. I did the same thing. I fought it for good, 4 or 5 minutes. It felt like I was doing a 200-pound curl for 5 minutes straight.
I bet.
I would reel it up 10, 15 feet, and it'll take me back down 20 feet. I mean, you could see the lead knot just going back and forth. I got tired to get back to Nick. He fought it for some more. He got tired to get back to me. I got tired, gave it to Jeremiah. He got tired, gave it to Captain. I mean, we could not get the fish past the 150. It was nuts, and we didn't realize how big it was. We knew it was big.
So how long was the whole fight?
Total. So from my video, I videoed as soon as it was hooked, and then when we landed, it was right at 45 minutes.
Wow,
that's not bad for.
That's not bad at all.
I've fought him.
No.
I mean, I've seen longer fights than that. Y'all did a good job.
I've seen 185 take 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Y'all did a good job on a fish that size.
Yep.
Yeah, we were able to muscle it up. I mean, like I said, my son got up to the lead, and I think if we would have known that fish that big, I mean, we would have just put the belt on him, because that's the only reason. I think that's the only way we were able to get it up that fast. Because once Jonathan, my client, got it, he's like, "Hey, I'm fresh." We handed him the rod, and Cap says, "Get the belt out." Just strapped him in, and he was able to keep tension on the fish, and he was able to get the fish past the thermocline. I think once we got him to about 120, 115 feet, he just pretty much just gave up, and we were able to drag him to the surface.
Y'all have a pretty, did you have a pretty normal time, easy time landing him? Nothing crazy happened at the boat, did it?
No, once he got up, I mean, it took 5 of us to get him in the boat. I mean, we had 3 gaffs in him, tail rope, and a guy, grabbed by the gills to get him into the boat.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's so awesome. Such a cool story and such a cool experience for you and your son and everybody
Absolutely.
out there, for sure. What was it like coming back to Venice Marina with a 258-pound yellowfin on the deck? I bet people were gawking.
Oh yeah. So the first fish was big. The second fish was, of course, way bigger. It wouldn't fit in the fish box. So we spent probably 35, 45 minutes out there trying to get it in the fish box. We had to take the first one out, put the big one in. The first one wouldn't fit in, so we had to cut the tail off the first one to get it to fit. And then we kind of just messed around, did some little snapper fishing here, tried to get target cobia, just to pass time. But then we were all thinking the same thing. We need to get this fish back to the marina so we could show it off. So we actually cut the trip short.
I don't blame you.
Flew back. Yeah. Flew back to the marina. Once we got there, man, that's when all the excitement, just the energy was amazing.
That's awesome, man.
There were a lot of people there just eating, chilling on the patio, and people, of course, walking around. And once we got there, everybody had already heard that we caught a monster. So we put the first fish on the bow, to offload it. Everybody thought that thing was huge. I mean, we had people come up taking pictures of him, and they were really excited about the first fish. It took us almost an hour to get the big fish out of the fish cooler, because the head was so big, it was lodged in there. I mean, it literally took 3 of us pushing and pulling. I mean, almost an hour to get it out.
It's a big.
And once we got it out, yes.
That's so cool, man. I'm glad you guys had that experience. That's truly a once in a lifetime experience. You hear that thrown around a lot, but that is, I mean, you're almost assuredly not going to catch a tuna bigger than that in your lifetime. So that's an amazing thing for your son to see. Hopefully he's not spoiled. Hopefully all of you aren't spoiled, and you'll keep.
Yeah.
Oh no,
keep at it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a lifetime trip with a lifetime fish, and it's just I think all 7 of us on board, we're pretty much connected moving forward, man. I mean, that's just one moment in our lives that we get to share, and it's just very special. I mean, you remember the rest of your life.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing the story with us. I know that's one I'm not going to forget either. And we're going to be sharing some photos that you've sent us over the coming days on social media. That's, man, just an amazing fish. So congratulations to Nick. Man, I hope y'all get to do it again. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, I hope so. Oh, definitely. And just I want to give a shout out to Voodoo Charters, man. I don't think it would have been possible without them. I mean, Captain Matt and Voodoo, man, he was fantastic. I mean, he made sure we got fish on the boat, and boy, did he.
Yeah,
awesome,
man. Yeah, y'all check out
customers
Charters.
for life right there.
Oh,
He's out of Venice Marina, right, Van? He's all the time out of Venice Marina. Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All right, Van. Well, thanks, man. Sure do appreciate you sharing that story with us, and hopefully we get to talk to you again soon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Dude, what a cool story. That kid, 14 years old, he's done. How do you beat that? What do you do after that?
I don't know. Start fishing for other stuff. Go buy a lottery ticket.
I don't know. It sounds like he loves fishing. That's awesome, man.
Start talking to older women. I mean, he's got the touch.
He's done it. He's a man. He became a man overnight for sure.
Man, that is such a cool story. I don't know. You know, it's almost like somebody was watching that, you know, and it was just like, this is just a cool group of guys.
Yep.
All got to share this together, and
needs to happen for them.
We'll make something cool happen.
Yep.
Definitely.
All right, man. We'll definitely post some pictures about that. Van sent me some cool pictures and some videos. I'm going to go through those and see what we can pick out for good stuff for you guys. Where are we headed next, man?
Let's get the inshore report from the Marshal of the Mississippi Sound, Captain Bobby Abrascato. How you doing, Captain Bobby?
How are you guys doing, man? That was a pretty awesome story, man. I'll tell you what. It's like, how come I had to go behind that, man? I need to go in front of that story.
So,
you know what I'm saying?
You know, Bobby, imagine
it's downhill from here, you know.
If you were 14 years old and you put your stouter in the water down in Mobile Delta or down on Dolphin Island somewhere, and you went out there and you cast out and you caught a 17-pound speckled trout.
Right.
That's essentially what he just did with yellowfin.
That's exactly, yeah. I mean, unbelievable. Yeah.
I mean, he crushed the record.
Had never been yellowfin tuna fishing before.
Yeah. That's unbelievable.
Cool.
You know, and that's a good way to, I mean, I'll tell you, that's a good way to put it right there, man. That's the way to put it. You just, you know, kind of put it in context right there, because that's so off the chart. You know, I'm almost 60 years old, and I would feel like a 14-year-old in a stouter kid. If I caught a 12-pound trout, I'd feel
right.
like that, you know?
Yeah.
So, that's phenomenal. And that's 50 some odd years, almost 50 years of chasing those speckled trout. I ain't not got anywhere close to that.
Yeah, it's just your day sometimes, man. Some days it ain't, and some days it is. And the days it is,
right.
It's awesome. Well, what's been going on the inshore side? Did you get out and get after those snapper a little bit? I know you kind of.
I did, man. I got a chance to get out one day with some buds, and man, we went and fished just some good old public numbers, not too terrible. I think we were on like the 29.58 line or some 57 line or something like that. Just picked a couple public numbers and went out and man, we didn't catch any snapper that were the equivalent of that yellowfin tuna by any means, but they were decent fish. And it's just, you guys turned me on to some fish towards the end of the regular season that were just off the chart size. But they might as well have been 200-something pound yellowfin, the fish that y'all turned me on to. But these were nice fish, man. We caught 20 to 22 inch fish, and if we were accomplished at catching snapper, we would have been done in no time. But you should have seen us out there whipping those snappers. You guys would have been just laughing and rolling in the deck of the boat. We'd have looked like some of the charts y'all used to take out, man.
Bobby, you say that. I mean, I was out with Richard Rutland a couple of weeks ago, cobia fishing. I guess it was last week, and we whiffed on 3 cobia. I don't think it was anything we did wrong necessarily. Sometimes I think the circle hook just gets twisted the wrong way. I'd like to believe that anyway, but it happens to the best of us, man. Don't think any other way. I certainly missed my fair share.
Well, I'll tell you, it was fun getting. We had 4 of us and got our 8 on the boat. The first 8 we caught were all keepers and deep. For me, they were pretty decent sized fish. And it was the first time I'd taken my new skeeter out there. And was tickled to death the way it handled and stuff. So it was really kind of a combination thing of, being able to go out there and do something that I don't normally do and in a new piece of equipment and so forth. And to add to some new pin reels that I'd been testing for them, I really kind of got the first chance I really got to truly fish for the fish that they were designed for. And so it was just all around a fun day. The weather was pretty good. It wasn't it wasn't mirror slick. And although I would have liked to ride out there when it was mirror slick, I was kind of glad I got to put this new boat to the test, and it did extremely well.
That's really neat that we got to have those extra days in October. We've been getting a lot of questions from guys who are just getting into snapper fishing, just getting into bottom fishing, or maybe just getting used to taking their boat a little bit further offshore. You were fishing some public numbers. How do those numbers mark up for you? You know, like everybody loves to talk about the, you know, looks like a volcano of fish, but I mean, were those public reefs marking up real good for you?
The times in the past that I've fished them, they have. The 2 or 3 that I stopped at, the one that we caught our fish on, didn't really mark up that well. It didn't, you know, I just was watching really, I didn't even see a hump or like you're talking. I have seen that volcano you've talked about on some of my electronics, and I'm not a electronics guru by any means, because Joe and Butch, y'all both know I spend more of my time in 2 or 3 feet of water where I can tell the depth by sticking my rod tip down in the water. But you know, I've seen it where it blows up like that. These didn't mark up like that. What put me on the fish, the place that I stopped at, is the coloring on the machine started changing, and I knew that it was showing more hard bottom, and that's the reason I stopped on it. But it mine never really showed any fish like you're talking about, and I've seen before, and I've seen on other electronics before. But you know, obviously there was a bunch of fish on it, because anytime that I can catch snapper like that, there's a bunch of fish on it.
Well, I'm glad you got to get out there and stretch the legs on the Skeeter a little bit. Where you been inshore wise? I know we're kind of getting into this. Everybody's talking about the fall transition. Or have you been up in the Delta yet?
I have. I've been on both ends of the bay and the center parts of the bay, and you know, it's still going to be. You know, we want it to be fall. You know, you know, but if you've been outside the last couple of days, you know, after we've had this blizzard come through here the last couple of days, where it's dropped it all the way down to the upper 80s. You know, it's going to take a lot more than that to get the water temperature down to where we go into a true transition. It's going to have to get the water temperature down under 75. So, you know, having said all of that, you know, it's a little cooler in the morning, obviously, if you've been out early in the morning, but the water temperature is not dropping enough yet to truly get them to transition. So, you know, having said all of that, I'm still catching fish, you know, down mainly in the Sound, which is where I like to stay. It's a little toothy down there still, which tells me that we're still in the summertime deal. You know, the structure bite in the Sound, you know, the rigs and the reefs and so forth are still the places to be at the lower end of the bay. And the upper end of the bay, you know, the red fishing has been really incredible up there. It's really been a lot of fun fishing redfish up there. The bass guys, I got a couple of buddies that are bass fishermen that are coming to me and going like, hey man, you know what, we're catching a bunch of redfish. We gave up on the bass fishing, man. It's just so much fun catching these redfish, you know. And I guess the bass fishing, from what I'm gathering from some of them, is not just because I guess of the heat or for whatever reason, you know, they've just kind of gotten into the bass fish. I mean, in the catching the redfish. But so you know, again, long answer to your question, lower end of the bay, it's still, and if you want to catch trout, that I think that's going to be the place to be. Probably going to be for another couple of weeks. You know, it's going to cool off a good bit more this coming weekend, and that should start to drop the temperature, and that's probably going to start to truly signal the transition. And then if you want to catch there's plenty of fish up in the northern end of the bay. We had a charter, I think it was last Friday. I had a charter that we had to run out of the Delta, and we had some out of towners, and we used live shrimp up there. My boat caught, they were counting them, and I think they ended up with 10 species, or it may have been more, but it was at least 10 species of fish. That included speckled trout, redfish. We had 14 bass. We had some freshwater catfish. We had ladyfish. Anyway, a variety of species up there, which, you know, tells me that water's really salty up there. So whichever way you're going to go.
Did I hear you say flounder?
No, I didn't catch a flounder, man.
Dang.
Rub it in.
I know. We're going to get that. That's okay. I'm immune to the flounder jabs. Yeah. And I deserve the flounder jabs. You know, I'm so bad at that.
I want to step you back to the bass report. My good buddy Hank Shaw, who's a wizard when it comes to cooking wild game and fish, was fishing with me, and I said, you know, Hank, there's a lot of people interested in how to cook bass. I said, how come you never do any recipes on bass? He said, oh, you mean a ditch pickle?
I've never heard that.
Never heard anybody call it a ditch pickle, but apparently
that's gonna stick. That's gonna
apparently
stick
Hank
right
is
there.
not fond of green trout, but so the ditch pickle bite was good for you guys. Sounds like.
Yeah. Well, if I again, the kind of like the snapper. If I caught that many, they were definitely biting. But it was fun because we sat one of the places we sat in. We caught, of those species I just mentioned to you. I think we caught almost at least one of each of them. And that tells you what happens with in that delta system with shrimp. I mean, that's the key to that whole delta. They can talk about pogies and mullet and all this other stuff up there, but I'm telling you that shrimp is the key to that delta system because everything is eating those shrimp up there. And the guy that I got hired on this particular trip, so it wasn't my trip, and anyway, he told us specifically, man, you need to bring bait for this trip. And so we brought bait, and you start putting shrimp out there in that delta, unless it's just absolutely flooded or blown out. If there's shrimp present in that delta, you start putting shrimp out there, you're going to catch some fish. There's so much stuff eating shrimp up there, and you're going to catch some fish. I still think it's going to be a little while before there's a really good trout bite up there, but I think you're going to start to see maybe some early transitional stuff by next week where you're starting to see maybe a little bird activity on the southern end, maybe south of I-10 and that sort of thing. But it's, again, we're wanting to rush it a little bit, but the key is going to be to keep an eye on that water temperature. 75 degrees is going to be your next magic number when some stuff's really we're going to really start to change.
Bobby, when those shrimp get pushed up in the delta like that and there's abundance of bait, there's an abundance of shrimp that those fish are orienting to and keyed on, do you have to have live bait in that scenario, or is artificial? I mean, are they so frenzied that they don't really care, or are they so spoiled that they won't touch an artificial?
Well, it's kind of a kind of a two-part question. When they're in a frenzy, obviously it isn't going to matter. You know what I'm saying? If you're on a school of fish that's found a swarm of shrimp and there's birds diving on them, I don't even waste the time or the shrimp by putting a shrimp on because you don't need them. The situation we had the other day, and it's going to be like this for a little while, the way it is right now and the way I think it's going to be for at least another week, you better at least have shrimp to start out with, and then you can try the other stuff. But like that day I was telling you about whatever day it was last week, I threw artificial all day, and I don't think I caught a fish, whereas I was steady taking fish all day for the other guys, and they weren't in a frenzy. So it's one of those kind of deals is if you get into a situation where you get a bite going really good, you need to have some voodoos or some kind of artificial bait tied on. Until it really gets cold, you're going to probably need to at least bring some bait to get you started,
Bobby, you mentioned that bite down in the sound being toothy. When I fished with you a couple of weeks ago, you were telling me y'all had done real well on some real nice Spanish mackerel. Are you still finding some of those fish down there on those reefs in the sound?
Yeah, it is. We have, we've still caught some, and it's so crazy. It's like, I think I can't remember what day it was you and I fished. I think you and I fished on a Sunday or a Saturday, and I think it was the day before, and I was bragging. I was going, man, we're going to go catch these Spanish. And they terrorize you when you're trout fishing. You can't keep a bait in the water without getting your hook cut off until you put steel leader on. And the day before, I can't remember, you may remember better than I do, but I know it was fairly close to when you and I went. And so you and I go down there and we catch trout, and some other species of fish. I don't even caught a Spanish all day, and I fished the exact same water that we fished the previous day,
Right.
So they're still there, but I mean, it's like, and you said it when we were down there, man, these Spanish, they stay on the move. By gosh, did they? Because we never, remember, you and I never even saw a Spanish.
No.
I spent a few minutes before you got there rigging up some steel leader, and I was all psyched up about it. I said, well, Joe, let's go catch some trout. And then we'll go catch some of these Spanish, man. It was a blast. We never even saw Spanish. You know what I'm saying? So it's they're still around there. I had some trips, Joe, since you and I went over the weekend. So you and I went over the weekend. So last week we went down and we caught a few Spanish, but we got a little bit more of a shark. It had a little bit more of a shark issue going among them, you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to catch those, so I didn't put the steel leader on until I started seeing some Spanish. But, I think they're still around there. I haven't been back down to the lower end in the last couple days. That's another thing that's going to kind of go away as the water cools off. You'll start to see that type of species not be so present in the sound in the lower end of the bay when the water starts to cool off a little bit.
Man, I'm ready for that cool down. Bobby, are you ready to open up a can of worms?
Yes, sir, I am. Man.
Well, you got the hey cap question.
If the trout fishing doesn't get any better, I am going to start trying some worms. But you were using it as a figure of speech. But yeah, I'm good, man.
Ditch pickles. They like them.
They
like the worms.
I love it, man. Ditch pickles. And you were hey Joe,
He said that I fell out. I fell out when he told me.
That's hilarious. That's going to stick, dude.
Oh yeah.
Hey. And the thing is, you're telling me about some of the other stuff he cooked, and I'm going like, what? This guy doesn't like bass?
Right. Yeah, this guy's he's in here making us dishes with the bycatch from the shrimp trawl, but he's just like turning his nose up at a green trawl.
At a ditch pickle.
Yeah, at a ditch pickle. Well, let's open up this can of worms. Well, you got the Hey Cap question this week. It's brought to us by Daycool Heating and Air. Butch, I love getting questions from our readers to ask these fishing specialists we have on the show each week. There's really nothing like going to the expert to shorten the learning curve, but just like the specialists on the fishing report each week, Daycool Heating and Air are your home performance specialists. What does that mean? That means they will inspect your property and find leaking air ducts, hoses, clean out ductwork, and find the HVAC problems before they become nightmares. So check out the heating and cooling specialists who bring you the inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing specialists each week, and mention this ad for a free home performance diagnostic. Contact them at 251-635-121. Let me do that over. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or online at www.daycoolair.com and on the Daycool Heating and Air mobile app. Their license number AL07028. All right, Bobby, here we go. Art Bush asks, what's the best overall alternative to the 7-twist fishing knot? I'm assuming that he means the standard fisherman's knot when he's saying the 7-twist fishing knot. The best overall alternative. What do you like to use, Bobby? I know you know a lot of knots, and I do too, but I only use a few of them.
Yeah, I can answer it in one word or two words. It's called the Palomar. Palomar, Palomar knot. And I'd highly recommend you learn how to tie that one if you're using that he referred to it as there's a number of different names for that knot he's talking about. And the reason I say that is, first of all, that twist knot or the clinch knot or the 7-twist knot, Berkeley knot, it's all the same, different name for the same knot. It doesn't work with braid. And there's applications where you need to use braid. And I know we've talked about this plenty in the past, so we won't dwell on it. But if you're thinking about using braid, you have to learn how to tie that Palomar knot. The Palomar knot works great. It works perfectly with fluorocarbon, mono, and braid. You start using the twist knot with braid, it's going to slip, and you're going to lose your hook, your lure, your hook, or your fish, obviously. So that's my answer, and I can back it up by telling you this. I did some testing. I was at a show years ago, and we had a knot testing machine there. It was a show for Berkeley, and I just migrated right over to the knot testing machine. So I was doing the knot testing, and people would bring up, they would come up. We had a line there, and we had a little testing machine. It would show the pound, at what pound their knot would break. And we tested, without exaggerating, probably 50 different knots. People would come up and say, "Hey man, let me show you this knot I tie." Pow, it'd break, and it'd break it, whatever. We're using like 14-pound test, and it would break at 8 or 10 or whatever. After the show was done and we tested 50 different knots, and we tested hundreds of them, we had people saying, well, here, try this knot, try that. After the whole show was done, that knot he was talking about and the Palomar tested out, the highest breaking strength of all the knots we tested.
Right.
But we were using mono, the test. So that knot works fine with mono, but if you start to use it with braid, it's going to slip. So if you learn how to tie that Palomar, you're covered either way, and you're not giving up anything at all in terms of breaking strength. What
about you, Butch? What's your go-to overall knot?
I don't even know how to tie a Palomar knot, I don't think.
Oh,
and by the way, let me back up and say this, Butch. It's an extremely easy knot to tie.
Super easy. If you can tie your shoes, you can tie a Palomar.
Yep, well, the Palomar is actually easier. To me, the Palomar is easier to tie than the 7-twist knot. I call it Berkeley knot, but whatever, the clinch knot. To me, it's easier to tie, considerably easier to tie. So you don't give up anything strength-wise. You got an easier knot to tie, and it works with anything you use.
I tie a uni knot for everything from speckled trout fishing to ditch pickle fishing to marlin fishing. A uni knot. That's what I tie.
You know what though, Butch? With that uni, it's funny because Bobby was talking about the braid, and I've noticed that if we're tying mono fluorocarbon, you can go with 3 twists on the uni, but if you step up to braid, you better go with 6 twists if you don't want
it will definitely pull out.
The Palomar is what I tie. If I'm doing a terminal tackle to braid application,
like to a popping cork, you mean?
Yeah, if you're going to tie, exactly. If you're going to tie the top of a popping cork, if you're going to tie to a swivel in a Carolina rig, I like a Palomar. If I'm going to tie mono or fluorocarbon, I usually use a uni. One of the knots I'm kind of a little bit ashamed to say it, but I still don't know how to tie the loop knot. I need to get Bobby to teach me up on the loop.
I've been working on it. And I do think it makes a big difference with your.
It does make a big difference. And again, we're trying to answer his question directly, and I think it's actually on my website. If you go to my website, it's the 5 knots that I use, and each one is for a different application. It's a different application. Like if I'm using a top water, for example, or any kind of lure that doesn't have a split ring, I use a loop knot, and so I got one loop knot that I tie, and then if I'm tying a piece of fluorocarbon, a loose piece of fluorocarbon to a piece of braid that's coming off a reel, I got a knot for that, and I'm good at tying that, and I can tie it almost blindfold. Actually, I might as well be blindfolded because you know how blind I am. But anyway, I can tie, and that's another thing is you got to be able to tie those knots fast. A lot of times in low light conditions, a lot of times when fish are eating the rod tips off and you got to get rigged fast. You don't need to be pulling a diagram out and trying to figure out how to tie a knot. You be able to tie it almost in your sleep, get it done. It works 100, you got it tied right, got it tied quick, and you can get it back out there and it'd be reliable. So, I don't want to spend my whole time when this action is going on, going through this encyclopedia in my mind, trying to figure out which knot I'm going to use for which application. I want to be able to go boom, boom, boom. I'm back out. I got to, back out in the water. So that's the way I've done it. And I can tie a handful of other knots, an Albright, and I can tie this and that. And in a uni, I can tie that too. But I got knots I can tie a lot faster without really concentrating on them and that sort of thing. So tell me your favorite obscure knot. What's the most obscure knot you can think of? I would probably say an improved Albright. What about you?
I would say Palm Beach blood knot.
Mine's going to be the Yucatan knot.
Oh my God!
Check out the Yucatan knot. It's a combination.
Oh, that's not true.
To tie a Yucatan, you have to tie a Bimini twist first. Then you can tie the Yucatan. That's fancy. That's it. When you want to impress your buddies, sitting around drinking beer, be like, "Oh, you don't know how to tie the Yucatan knot?"
Joe, let me ask you this. So you're telling me when you're sitting around with your buddies, y'all's conversation is tying fishing knots? Man, we got to get you a life, dude. We got to come up with something better than
Bobby. I do everything I can to have something, just anything to hold over someone.
I want to change my answer with my favorite obscure knot. What is the one? What is the one that?
It's so obscure you don't even know the name of it.
That's exactly right. I have no idea. What is the one that Dad always made us tie with the big offshore swivels where you twist it up a bunch and twist it?
The South Pass expansion knot.
South Pass expansion knot. That is my favorite obscure.
That's a crazy knot. That is a crazy.
It's also awesome. I've called everything on it.
It's really cool, Bobby. It stretches. I bet it stretches 30-40%.
It's a ton.
Good gracious. It's like having a little shock absorber.
It is.
It really is,
you use it when you're trolling for
That's pretty cool.
It does. It works really well. Well, Bobby, good stuff this week. Look forward to having you back on again sometime here soon.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Yeah, it's always a blast, man. I just can't believe that it goes by so quick. I know we're supposed to be talking a quick, short report, but when you start talking about this kind of stuff, maybe I'll start coming to some of those parties by you, some of those parties you're talking about where you're tying knots. This thing actually does get kind of fun.
We can start recording.
I'll crush you on some knot knowledge.
Hey, you got it, man.
I'll take that.
Hey, I'm gonna defer. Anybody that can tie a South Pass expansion knot, I defer. I'm waving the white flag right there, dude. I can't see how the South Pass expansion knot's going to help me with a 14-inch trout, but if you can maybe show me.
That's true. Never know.
You never know.
Never know.
All right, Bobby. Thanks, man. Good talking to you. We'll talk to you soon. Stay safe.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Captain Bobby. Keep whacking them. All right, Joe. It's always great to hear from Captain Bobcat Abrascato, man. Dude's a wealth of knowledge.
Good to hear he's getting out there and chasing those snapper. I know he likes that.
I like it. I like he's stretching his legs a little bit. I like that. He's expanding his horizons. All right, man. Where are we headed to next?
We got to wrap it up with an offshore report. Thank goodness it's improving out there. We got some great reports. We're going to have back on with us today Crystal Hightower, also known as the Science Lady. But Crystal, what is your official title with the University of South Alabama?
So officially, I'm the Senior Research Laboratory Manager for the Fisheries Ecology Lab.
It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. It is. You don't go to school that long for just a short, title like the Science Lady.
I don't know. I feel like you need an acronym.
Yeah.
So, Crystal, last time we had you on the show, you were telling us all about the different cobia, multiple different tagging projects that you guys have going on. I know you've been working on cobia, but that's not the only thing you guys have been tagging. Tell us what all you have been doing lately.
Sure. Yeah, we're crazy busy. So it's been, like I told y'all, it's kind of Tagapalooza. So if it's swimming and we're, able to, if there's a fishery for it, we're catching them and tagging them. So inshore, we've got our collaboration with the CCA, Tag Alabama. That's going really good. We've got anglers out tagging for us every day, which is great. It kind of frees us up to do a little more work. We're hitting the cobia, just now getting into that. We've got satellite tags for cobia. Also working with CCA again. They've been awesome and interested in kind of what these fish are doing in terms of their migration. And we really want to, continue to track those fish. We were out all day today trying to get some more sat tags in cobia. And, for those tags, it's a little different than the mark recapture tags or the generic tags that you would have just a number of a fish. You call in, get a t-shirt or a hat. Like with these tags, these are satellite tags. So, a normal fish tag that we've got the anglers out tagging red drum, triple tail, speckled trout with, those just are a number. And that's to look at the fish movement. But we're just hoping for a recap. For these cobia tags, we've got a satellite tag on them that is collecting data all the time. So this is a very expensive tag. A couple of people ask me what's it worth at the pawn shop, and I can tell you they don't know. They don't know what they got with that tag. You really can't do anything with it unless you have like the algorithms and the math to kind of put into the system and the programs that you need to run that thing. But the tags that we're using specifically for cobia are they're mini pats, so they're pop-off archival tags that continue to take. They've got their own salinity logger, temperature, and light, and then the depth. So they take all of that information and then record that onto the tag. Each tag's programmed to then pop off, and that's our decision when they're going to pop off. But right now we're hoping to get some out, keep them out as long as we can. But we've got planned 3-month, 6-month, and 9-month pop-off times. And at that point, then that will send the satellite, a signal, ideally, and then let us kind of know where those fish have been, what depths they've been at and stuff. So that's really, really cool. One thing with those tags, we do really want to stress, if you can at all, and I know it's hard to give up a cobia, but please release those fish. We've been seeing them. We've had a couple recaptures. I think that Blakely Ellis with the CCA is going to work on kind of a prize package that's a little better, than a hat or shirt, because we really do want to see where these fish are going. And the longer that tag stays on the fish, the more data we can collect, from that.
What she's trying to say, folks, is if you catch a tagged cobia, please do not eat it.
Right.
If you do eat it, come find me and I'm going to slap you on the wrist.
If you do, sir, I will say, if you do keep the fish, please call us immediately. So all of these fish should have a tag on it. Like
this cobia was in Chatham, Alabama. What the heck's going on?
We've definitely tracked some tarpon down to Midtown before. I won't name any names or addresses, but with these tags, these are a little different than the tarpon tags. So the tarpon tags do give us a location each time the tarpon surfaces, and that fish, if it stays on the surface long enough, it gives us a GPS location immediately. These tags are archival, so they're just archiving all that data, and eventually we'll send the signal. So, unless we have the tag in hand or it pops off like it's programmed to, we won't get that data. So it's really important. And this is just a handful of tags. Like, I'm talking 4 tags that we're putting out. So,
well, and here's the thing. Relate this back to, the reason this is important is that we think it's generally accepted that the cobia we're catching in Mobile Bay are fish that have migrated from South Florida. But right. You guys have learned from some folk in different parts of the country that it's possible that these cobia or ling,
overwinter,
Richard makes me call them, are actually maybe spending time offshore. It could be different groups of fish, and if we don't know where these fish are coming from or where they're going, how can we manage them effectively?
Totally. So, we just got back from a national fisheries meeting last week where we met up with some colleagues from NC State, and they've been tagging fish off North Carolina's coast. And one of the really cool things that they found is they found some fish overwintering in deep water. So we know these as a coastally migratory species, kind of a near shore fish, in terms of an offshore kind of fish, like near shore. And so we wouldn't expect them to go deep. However, we know that there's work being done in the Gulf by Jim Franks and the guys at GCRL that suggests there might be an overwintering population specifically in our area off the continental shelf. So, it's not unheard of that these fish might be overwintering here, but that's really what we want to get at. Like, do we have these kind of Alabama fish that kind of hang out, stick around and just go deep? Like in the winter, go to find a warmer area to hang out in rather than, moving back and forth that known migration every year,
What does overwintering mean, for the sake of not sounding dumb? I'll sound dumb.
Yeah, so, essentially these fish are driven by light and temperature. And so we think that, we get kind of an influx, like an east to west migration, I'd say spring, summertime. And then during the winter, you would expect them to kind of move back across the shelf west to east to Florida.
Right.
So instead of doing that, we may just have some that chill here and just move south, And like any of our tagging studies go to show, like, whatever we know about fish, there's always more to learn. Yeah. And if there's food and habitat available, fish do what they want,
Right.
But if we can at least kind of put some trends together, then we can learn more and more about them. Something with the Tag Alabama fish inshore, people ask all the time, what are some things that we're learning from that? And I think Richard and Bobby, would agree with, and a lot of the guys that are out tagging and hearing back from their fish is that, a lot of times fish that you think that move all the time, like a redfish, actually might stick to one spot and not move all that much. A fish like a speckled trout, you're thinking like kind of make these larger, movements that are well known, might be moving all over the place. So Some of the things that we can kind of tease out with these tags is pretty incredible.
Right. Like this is Harry the redfish. He lives on Shell Belt Road in Cody.
Right.
Absolutely. He likes to eat pogies and he comes up, every night. I don't know.
Enjoys long swims along the coast.
Yeah.
Crystal, what I'm hearing though is what's important to me is I got to bring it back to redneck is if we can figure out where these cobia are in the wintertime, then we can kill them,
So don't eat the fish with tag.
I would say just to be serious, I enjoy fishing. I spend the better part of every day thinking about fish, catching fish, being on the water. Like, obviously I want to learn more about these fish so that we can continue to catch them and keep the sport going. Cause I'm not just a science lady. Like I do like to catch a fish,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway,
so speaking of,
that's kind of,
so you got to go out with Richard today as we're talking to you and do some cobia fishing. Tell us a little bit about the the lower bay and what kind of success you guys had today?
Sure, yeah. So it was a little slow start this morning. Like, we had been seeing pogies all around the place. Like, had been awesome for bait, but we just started out trying to catch some live bait. Had a little trouble locating them. Rode around for quite a while just to get some pogies, but collected some live bait, cast net, and then we just, kind of started moving around looking at structures near shore. And really, it's just kind of mostly a sight game. Like, try to look for them, try to locate them. And it's a cobia fishing, just like any other coastal pelagic, like triple tail or whatever you guys know. Like, it's just a lot of riding around and looking.
Right.
Have some really good polarized sunglasses and look. And I swear, Captain Richard has like X-ray vision through the water. Everyone's always asking him like, what kind of Costas are those, or what kind of lenses or whatever. And it's like, he just has like,
It's his
he's
eyes.
got the
Yeah.
totally.
It's not the glasses. He's just trained. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But
I was going to ask you, how many did you see and how many did you catch?
Right. So we saw, I'd say 25 fish.
Wow.
So granted, we got out at sunrise and we just got off the water. So we were out for the better part of a, 10-hour day or whatever, almost 12-hour day. So that's all day looking, moving around, checking everything out, driving, that we tried to fish hard because we wanted to get another satellite tag out. Ultimately, we got, 7 belly tags in. So for these cobia, if they're undersized, we're putting belly tags in them, the green tags that you would see in offshore reef fish. So, if you don't see a big black tag hanging off of it, if you do see a little belly tag, a green tag, no problem keeping that fish. Just call, it's got a 1-800 number on it, or you can get in touch with us. Like, we're real easy to find and get a hold of. Call the Sea Lab. If you don't know what to do about a fish, you can always find me on Facebook and just ask, But for just the belly tags, we're putting those out on every fish we can possibly put it on, just to get information on the mark recapture stuff. We weren't pleased, we caught a couple legal fish, even today's standards, but they still just didn't seem quite big enough to hold that satellite tag. And so we're being a little picky because we want the fish to make it. We don't want to harm the fish at all if we can help it. Just because these, tags are so important, we want to get that data. But yeah, we looked all day, but we caught 7 cobia, which is like
incredible.
By anyone's standards, an incredible day. Yeah. And we could have kept 2 of those fish, for dinner had we wanted to, but we went ahead and put belly tags in them and let them go.
Awesome.
Research wins.
A lot of people think they quit thinking about fishing in October, but I'm telling you, man, October in Alabama is probably my favorite month for offshore.
It's going off.
Did you go on the Escape last week and spend a couple days in Bluewater?
I did. So I do a lot of work offshore on red snapper, and I get to do a lot of bottom fishing for work and running the ROV and checking reefs out and stuff. But actually decided to take a little staycation on the Escape and head out for a fun trip, which, for me, vacation is more fishing. Got to go out and do some tuna fishing, which has really got me fired up. Like, I wish I saw them headed back out again today, and I wish I was going back out there because it was pretty much on fire. Like, I've only been on probably 4 or 5 tuna trips, but that was definitely the best one so far.
So you guys had a pretty big fish, right? What was your biggest yellowfin?
Yeah, we did. So we had our biggest one was 160 pounds or so. Wow. We estimate. So, before it was gutted and brought back, we ended up with 15 yellowfin, which is crazy. I mean, I pay attention to the docks and, hear people coming in, and like, it seemed like the tuna bite had been slow or non-existent,
It didn't seem that way. It was that way.
Yeah.
It's been slow.
We were able to get out there. It was a 3-day trip. So went out, did some bottom fishing, got our our beeliner limited out quickly, and then headed straight offshore because there was a good report. And probably started about 4 o'clock in the morning. Started like chunking and doing some jigging for blackfin. Didn't really caught a few yellows, but mostly blackfin. Ended up with like 30 blackfin, pretty quickly. Kept fishing into sunrise. Started put the outriggers out, trolled, and then started catching yellowfin, and it just kept on all day. So that was pretty incredible. And then we actually got to put the kite out, which I am like in love with the style of fishing, to just see the baits dance and like learn how to use that thing. It was pretty incredible. And to see a fish jump and hit that, like it was pretty awesome.
Kite fishing is by far my favorite way to catch a tuna. There's nothing like it.
Oh man, so cool. So the big fish, to get back to that, like essentially we were trolling, caught a fish, had a guy up on that, started reeling it in. It was coming in pretty easy. And then out of nowhere, it just started like it was like it turned or something and started taking drag out, like zooming. And come to find out, what was going on is, in the scientific world, we call this a depredation. But really what it is just when your predator, which at the time for us was a blackfin that we had trolled up, becomes the prey, like becomes the bait. So that big yellowfin actually bit on a fish we were cranking in. And it was about a 50-minute bite. A couple of guys, the guy had to pass it off, and but eventually we got it in. And let me tell you, it was incredible. One, to just see a fish that big, but also to kind of see these guys on the escape, like Captain Skipper, his deckhands, Chris, Chad, Shelton, like they have it together. Like they've got it down. And to see them work and work with the guys to get the fish in, it was pretty awesome.
It's a science for sure. They've been doing it for a long time.
It takes a lot of teamwork too. Everybody's got to be working in concert with each other, and they've always had some of the best crews down there. So, but you guys sounds like you did awesome on tuna. What about wahoo? Man. I saw some nice wahoo, and that makes me really excited. I love wahoo.
Oh yeah, so that was one of the things that made the trip for me. So I got a couple of yellowfin trolling. They were decent size, nothing to write home about. But on the way in, and we put the fast trollers out on the way in, and not far down the road had a hit, and I was up. So like go down, start to crank on the fish, like, and assume the water was pretty blue, and we were to assume it was a wahoo. It was pretty nice bite, but reeled it in, got a wahoo, put the fast trollers back out. So that one was probably about 40 pounds. Super nice fish. And for me, I would consider that like my first offshore slam. So I had a yellowfin. I didn't even talk about mahi. We about noon on day 2, we like hit a school of mahi, nice sized fish, that just wouldn't quit. Like, I mean, we probably saw like 30 fish, tossing out to them, catch one, kind of did the whole conveyor belt. Somebody get a fish on, hang on to it, somebody else go cast out in front of them, bring that fish in. It was just, one after the other. But so I had my yellowfin, I had my mahi, and then this was the wahoo. And so for me, that made the trip. Like,
that's
that was
a slam
something
for sure.
that I just hadn't done. And that was, it was pretty incredible. But yeah, we just got down the road a little bit, still headed north, and had another hit, another wahoo. We put them back out, had another hit, had another wahoo.
That's awesome.
We were running out of room in the fish box, no kidding. Had to do some, moving things around, running out of ice. Like, it was getting ridiculous. And then finally topped it off with a king.
That's awesome.
And that was it. We were like, there's no more room.
Right.
We're
tap
done.
out.
We got to go. Like, we're never going to make it home. We keep fishing,
That is what you call on the meat.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was awesome. Ended up with around 1,200 pounds of fish. So,
wow.
we've been eating good this week.
Heck yeah. Well, we're not going to let you get out of here without an offshore tip. This week's offshore tip is brought to us by CCA Alabama. Another great way to support conservation projects like the Club Petite Flounder Hatchery and the University of South Alabama Cobia Tagging Project is through the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama saltwater fishing license plate. Just head over to Alabama Department of Revenue's distinct license plate page at revenue.alabama.gov to get yours. What you think for a offshore tip this week, Kristen?
Okay, yeah. So like I said,
I was gonna do the whole long title, but I figured I didn't have time in this show.
Give us the science lady offshore tip.
Yeah. You do have a time limit here,
That's right.
No, so I mean, for me, like in terms of doing something new, like going out and kite fishing or like catching these big tunas, like wahoo, whatever it is, like just knowing, like you said, you've got like a great crew out there. There are definitely people that have the experience on me that I don't have. Like, so just being a little humble and listening to the crew, listening to your deckhands, listening to your captain, like it's so easy to get so excited about a big fish like that and just completely lose it. I mean, I think really just for me, paying attention and trusting in your crew and captain and listening to what they have to say and do exactly what they tell you to do. And for the most part, if you do what they tell you to do and you don't horse around with it, you'll get the fish in,
Yep.
Man, that's a really good point. And it's something that I've been lucky enough to get to fish in some other places, besides the Gulf Coast. And I try to act like I don't know anything when I go to those places.
Shouldn't be that hard for you to do.
Right. I mean, it comes naturally. But in seriousness, because I want to learn the way they do it. I don't want to inject my way, because that's how you can bring something back to your fishery.
Yep.
And, I've picked up stuff from freshwater guys to use in saltwater and vice versa. I've picked up stuff from Alaska and the West Coast to use back here. And Butch, we saw some stuff out in Hawaii that was unbelievable that, I mean, they fish completely different.
Totally different.
Yeah. Right. Totally different. So it's that's a great point, is just to go out there and and the other good thing is if you do it their way and you lose a fish, you can blame it.
You can always rub it in their face. That's right.
Exactly. It's not your fault. Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Crystal, thank you for all you do with the research on all of our fish, and I'm really looking forward to finding out more of the data that you're going to get back from, especially this cobia tagging project. I'm partial to the ling, but thanks for being on with us today, and glad to hear you guys are on fish, and hope you wrap up your fall and get all your tags out, and we'll look forward to having you back on soon.
Sweet. Thanks so much.
Great report. Thanks, Crystal.
Whoo, son. It's going off, man. It's going off. Get out there, get after them. Just about everybody's on fish.
I agree. Sound like the extended snapper season went pretty well.
Yeah. It's tough, man. This time of year, golly, there's so many cool things to go do. You have football games and hunting and dove hunts, and man, that fishing is where it's at.
Yeah, for sure. I thought something cool happened this week. I got an email from Justin Lewis. He's from Roanoke, Alabama, and he's the one that
he had his hey cap question last week.
That's right. Captain Richard answered his hey cap question last week, and he brought his boat down for the extended snapper season, and they absolutely smashed him. They caught their limit, and he was fired up, and I told him to even keep the drift line out for kings. He sent me a picture of a night king. He was very grateful about what we're doing and what our guys are sharing, and that's just really cool.
That is really cool. So he had never caught a limited snapper on his own before. He'd been trying for a while, and he basically said he listened, and from what he learned, just kind of listening and getting his question answered, he was able to go out and get it done. That's what it's all about for us. By the way, for y'all listening, is we all had someone help us out when we were learning how to fish, and we still are learning how to fish. But
always,
there's so much knowledge on this coastline that these guys are willing to share with you every week, and it's so cool and so rewarding to see it come together like that. Because that's, I mean, how cool is that?
It's as good as it gets.
Technology and guy got out on the water and got it done. Yep. Really cool. Thanks for sharing that with us, Justin.
Absolutely.
What'd you learn today, man? A lot. Oh man, a lot. What'd you learn?
It was a lot of information. Man, the pros know what they're doing. I don't think any doubt about that. Take a trip with Mr. David and go out on the pier. Van actually didn't say it on the air, but he said it off the air. The reason they caught that, the reason they caught that fish was, they charter Voodoo Charters. Captain Matt was awesome. He had adequate bait, and they worked their butt off for that bait, but they got it, and that's what got it done.
Yeah, I mean, like what Crystal was saying, too.
Yep.
Just be humble. Listen to those guys. You can learn something. Everybody, I don't care how long you've been fishing, you can learn something because they do things a little bit different. And man, I tell you, if I was just getting into it, take a daggum charter, man. It's just going to get you. You're going to learn so much. Don't just take one charter. Take several charters. Like a couple of charters over a summer will knock, like you say, years off the learning curve.
100%.
I mean, just seeing how Richard does his cobia fishery, seeing how all Bobby and Patrick and Richard approach the inshore fishery, seeing how folks like your dad and your brother approach the offshore fishery, getting out there with David Thornton and Matthew Isbell. If you want to go learn to pier, go talk to David. You want to learn to surf, talk to Matthew, David, Scott Kennedy, Dusty Hayes. All those guys have literally been living and breathing this stuff.
Yep. That's
what I really learned too. Is get out there with them and pay attention. Soak it up.
Agreed. Good show this week, man.
Enjoyed it, folks. Thanks for listening. As always, if you'd like us to send you the podcast, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR. Subscribe, rate, and review whatever podcast catcher you're using. Oh, yeah.
What?
What are you sending, Art? We got some cool new goodies.
Ooh, we do have some Fishbite stuff. I actually haven't packaged them out yet. Maybe we'll have to discuss that. He'll get some Fishbite goodies for sure. They sent some
of the Fight Club series. They sent some Fishbites. They sent some jig heads. Got some stickers in there.
Paddle tail, the Fishbite paddle tail Fight Club.
So y'all get y'all's Hey Cap question in. Follow us on Facebook. There's a post up right now for Hey Cap questions, or you can email them to us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com. Butch,
keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-973-9999.
And also KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com. And also brought to you by Daycool Heating and Air, your home performance specialist. Contact them at 251-260-3858 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com. License number AL07028.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea temps, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at hiltonsoffshore.com.
And also, Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com.